Before we jump into this episode, I want to take a moment to tell you about the upcoming Texas Woodworking Festival, a 2-day celebration where makers and enthusiasts come together to share their passion for the craft. Join us for a weekend filled with creativity, community, and inspiration. You'll meet tool manufacturers, furniture makers, woodworking clubs, content creators, and more, all in one place with great food and drinks, and of course, all things woodworking. It all takes place in Austin, Texas on September 13th and 14th. The festival features an educational track on Saturday and Sunday, plus a special pre-conference content creator track on Friday, September 12th. There you'll have a chance to learn from masters of the craft like Gary Rogowski, Matt Kinney, Andy Rawls, and Kate Casey, just to name a few. Head to the TexasWoodworkingFestival.com for more details and to grab your tickets. Use the code MWA25 to get 10% off your tickets. I'll drop a link in the show notes. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, there's something for everyone at the Texas Woodworking Festival. Don't miss it. Welcome to the MWA podcast. I'm Kyle and I'm joined by my co-host Brian. Today we're excited to welcome Zack Fealk to the show. Zack is a furniture maker, designer, and the lead instructor for the 40-week wood design program at the Sam Beauford Woodworking Institute. So welcome to the show, Zack.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. Well, it's great to have you. We had your boss on a few episodes ago, Luke Barnett. So in fact, he says y'all need to talk to Zack. So
I know he hyped me up.
So we are very excited to talk to you about everything happening, both what you do for yourself as well as what you're doing for the SBWI. So if I'm saying that, is that the acronym y'all use around the
yeah, that because Sam Beauford Woodworking Institute is quite the mouthful. So
exactly,
SBWI is good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, before we talk to Zack, let's hear a word from our sponsor.
Sutherland Wells knows that exceptional craftsmanship deserves an exceptional finish. That's why they handcraft their full line of low and VOC exempt finishes and stains using the highest quality, cold-pressed, sustainably grown tung oil. Their unique polymerization process delivers the deep penetrating, grain-enhancing, non-yellowing protection of tung oil while reducing the drying time, allowing the finish to build a beautiful, durable film. Sutherland Wells, the timeless look of traditional oil made for the modern woodworker, and use code MWA25, that's the numbers 25, for 10% off your first order.
And we'd like to thank Sutherland Wells for their sponsorship of this episode. All right, and let's continue to pay the bills and give our patron a thanks. So who do we have to thank this week?
So this week, we're giving a big thanks, as always, to one of our Patreon supporters. Today, we're giving a big shout out to Ryan Stone. So thank you, Ryan. If you would like to support the MWA podcast, please go to www.patreon.com/MWA podcast, and you can pick your level of support, and we would very much appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much, Ryan. Let's move on to what's in the shop. So, Brian, we've been recording these episodes back to back since we had the little minor mistake with Chuck Bender and had to re-record that episode. So it's been, 36 hours, 72 hours since I last talked to you. So what's going on in the shop? How's the office going?
So I bought, the arch is now blended to the vertical wood pieces that are coming up off the floor. I bondoed everything, then sanded it to the nice curve. And then I realized I'm an idiot and I didn't break the edges of the plywood arch before I put it up to kind of match, like the round over that's on the poplar, we'll call it molding, coming up straight up to it. So I had to, I have this little chamfer plane, tiny little chamfer plane, and that allowed to get me, I'd say about 2/3 of it. But then I had to sand, and actually at one spot, you do a little bit of a chisel just because I'm an idiot and I forgot to do that before I put it up in the air. So everything is fared, ready to go. We are going to de-dust, and then my wife's going to start painting. And then once the painting's done, put the lights in. Hopefully everything turns on. Boy, I hope it does. And from there, it's bookcase heaven. We're just going to start knocking out bookcases, and my Veritas shelf drilling jig is going to get. I think I calculated like 750 holes. So this thing's going to get quite the workout. So I'll call it the fun stuff, because after that, we're going to start making some built-in drawers, as well as a like a bench that's going to be cedar lined. I have to get some supporting hinges and stuff I found a company that'll make custom cushions for you, so I don't have to try and do that. Yeah, it's going to be good. I had to do something in the little reading nook. There's I guess we'll call it a shelf. It's like an L-shaped shelf that's going to be above the built-in bookcases. And I was, thinking on the left side that goes into what was the closet. I was just going to drywall it. Then I'm like, let's do something like why not make it more difficult, right? So let's do something a little more architectural. So I'm actually going to I guess wainscot it out of the flooring that I'm going to make. So, but I needed something in the ceiling to attach that to on the top. So I had to, there's no stud there, right?
Right.
So I shopped around my garage. I guess we're all like this. Like I hoard hardware. So I found a bunch of
hardware, screws, washers, nuts. Yes.
I like those metal kind of corkscrew in wall anchors. They're like 50
Oh
pounds.
Yeah. I love those things. Yeah.
So I grabbed a piece of scrap poplar, drilled a bunch of holes in it, pre-drilled them, kind of popped it into the ceiling so I knew where the holes would be, put the anchors in, and it should be fine.
Yeah.
And I just got to figure out down the road what I'm going to do in the back side, because even though it's a closet, it'll still bother me if you see all this framing type stuff. So, and then of course my wife wants me to swing the door in instead of out. So she wants a whole different, excuse me. She wants a whole different door as it is. So I bought one of the Chris Schwarz's How to Make a Door and Window book, tiny little gray one. I've only got a few pages into it, but it's definitely written by a British guy. So I'm learning all sorts of British terms. But I'm hoping to learn out of there what I need to know. I think I want to use some saws hinges, although I don't really need to, because if the door swings in, I'm not going to see the hardware unless the door is open.
Yeah.
So I might save some bucks there and just kind of use the hardware that's already there. So a lot of little stuff. We're making progress. I hate painting. I absolutely hate painting. So I told my wife, that's not me, that's you. So
hey, there you go.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Kyle, how about you?
You bring back, bad memories about sauce hinges. I've used them a couple of times and I haven't had any mistakes, but it's been kind of the most nerve-wracking thing of making a jig and routing it out, going, you got one shot at this.
Yeah, there is I bought I think I have 2 or 3 of them now for different sizes, but the actual, it's like a phenolic plate with the like a bushing and everything. They just drop the router into it and do that. But you got to take the molding off the door to do that, because you need something, the little, I forgot that little piece of molding is called, where the door actually comes to rest against.
Right.
So yeah, it's always something.
Yeah, mine, when I did it, I didn't buy the little template thing. I just said, oh, well, this will be easy. It's, it's one router bit, and I just have to make, a little recess in there and then make it a little bit deeper right there in the middle part. So it worked out fine, but yeah, it was pretty nerve wracking. So, but besides that, been doing the shop reorg. So that is, I think, done. I know I talked a little bit about it on our last episode, or their interview episode with Chuck. So I think that's done. We'll see. I'm going to live with it for a few weeks and make sure it's okay. But yeah.
Did you have to redo the dust collection?
Yeah, I had to remove my dust collector over about 4.5 feet. So, and that's a pain in the butt. I need to rectify this situation one of these days, but my dust collector takes up way too much floor space, because I have a single stage dust collector, and then I have the humongous super dust deputy to make it into a two-stage collector. Yeah, cyclone. So the floor space this thing takes up is tremendous. So I just need to, one of these days, just, bite the bullet and buy a cyclone. But I haven't done that yet. So anyway, we'll see. I that's one of the things. I was actually looking at it. So I typed in woodworking cyclones to see, because I know on Oneida, Clearview used to be a player, but I think they retired and went out of business, because their website now says, hey, if you would like to buy this, we retired. If you'd like to buy this.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So they've gone out. But when I did that search, believe it or not, Harbor Freight makes like the super dust deputy to turn your single stage into a cyclone, 2-stage cyclone. They make a whole setup for that. Wow. Harbor Freight does, yes. Apparently it's a fairly new product, but I was looking at it, I went, Wonder how that works. I don't know. We'll see. But, for just, I think it was like $250 or $279 or something, but it was like, for what Oneida charges for just that cyclone, you get the cyclone hoses and a bin, and apparently it's got some suction things so you can use liners in it because it's got a little hose that goes to the bottom of the it's not a 55-gallon drum, but it's probably like a 35-gallon drum, goes to the bottom of that. So it looked interesting. I was like, and I go, how long have they had that? Apparently they just came out with it, so that would be interesting to see if anyone does any reviews and see if it's worth it. I know their tools, like certain brands. This was the red one, starts with a B. I forgot what the quote unquote brand name of the tool is, but I think that's their little bit higher line of tools or whatever. So who knows? But anyway, so dear listener, if you need one of those, go out there and check it out at Harbor Freight. Let us know how it works out for you.
I mean, they make some decent stuff that makes absolute crap, but I wouldn't buy one of their drills or something unless you plan to use it for a job. But I'm curious how well the suction is compared to what they publish the specs at.
Yeah, I don't know. But and then I've been finishing up the bottle openers I'm making for my buddies for our get together this summer, my college buddies. So hopefully that works out pretty well. It's the first time I've made that kind of stuff. I've never turned a pin. I've never turned any of the kitchen stuff. So this is like the first thing I've ever turned. I know, Brian, you turned like what, 200 little thread seam rippers or something
the beer club that I belong in, sometimes we'll do charity events and I'll always put in a bunch of bottle openers for the auction. So pizza cutters.
I should have just outsourced it to you and said, hey.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm finishing those up. I would post some, but unfortunately about half my college buddies I want to meet up with follow me on Instagram, so I want it to be a surprise. I don't think any of them listen to the podcast. I think I'm safe there. So anyway, and also I'm going to mention this in this episode or our next episode, but Luke did send me email saying that he's going to be teaching a bird cage side chair class. Yeah. And I know when we were on the podcast, I mentioned to him, I go, has anyone teaching a bird cage class? Because that's the one thing I would like to learn how to do is do that bird cage top stuff. He goes, oh yeah, it's that's pretty hard to do and But apparently he thought about it and he had some plans for this side chair, so he decided to offer it as a class. And unfortunately, I'm going to be on vacation when he does it. It's Friday, July 28th through August 1st of 2025, 5-day class. Unfortunately, I'm going to be on vacation during that time with my wife, or I would be, heading up your way and probably spending the night in Sean's greenhouse. But anyway.
Yeah, that's a cool chair though. That's has that duckbill joint and the box stretcher on it, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, but that looks like a neat stuff. But yeah, and I saw that Zach when I was putting together the show notes for your episode. I went, that's interesting. And then a day later, Luke emails me, hey, could you mention this? I went, sure, not a problem, not a problem. Yeah. So like I said, if our listeners out there, I would definitely check that out. If you're, if you have any interest in building a birdcage side chair, this is probably the only class that's going to teach a birdcage chair at all. I mean, whether it's a side chair, a rocker, or stuff. So at least you get that experience on how to do that top part of that chair with the spindles and the duckbill joint there. That is an incredible little joint there because it's just all carved and it's like a little mortise and tenon around.
It's a mortise and tenon and it tricks you into that miter. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is cool. And like I said, this is the only time I've ever seen it being taught. So
and I think that is fully one of his like sort of more full Windsor designs. So he also, you're getting like an exclusive, chair from someone from the designer themselves.
Yeah. So that is fantastic. So check that out. I'll have a link in the show notes for that. And Zach, so what are you working on in your shop?
Right now, we're it's a Wednesday right now, and we're in the middle of my hanging wall cabinet class.
Okay.
So day 3 of 5, and there could be up to 6. We got only a couple in there right now, which is okay with me. You can get more into details, and still enough people to hang out. But that is a small wall cabinet, about 24 by 15, and then 7 inches deep. And it's got through dovetails for the carcass with miters on the back and front. So that's the thing that takes a long time for folks. And then some through tenons on it. And then it's a practice in, rabbets, statos, and grooves. There's a sliding door on there. So how to fit, a sliding door that you can pull in and out. Because some people make another door later with like a mirror on it for their bathroom. And a shiplap back. So it incorporates like a ton of those sort of principles. And I designed it last year, and now I have my long-term students make it as one of their first projects, and I do a 5-day class of it. And a lot of people have been like, I don't really like wall cabinets, but I do really like this one. It's not people who have to be nice to me. So I'm like, okay, there's something to this design. Yeah. So we're about to glue up tomorrow, and then we're making and fitting the door. That's a big day.
Nice. So it's a full 5-day class. And so how far along do you get as far as the in the 5th day and stuff like that? I assume everyone's walking away with something.
Yeah. So everyone has usually it's your carcass is done, your shiplap's on, and the door fits, and you have at least one coat of finish on there.
Oh, wow. So it's finish and everything.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like,
cool.
My goal is to always have people walk home with, I don't want them to come home with parts. Like,
right.
You got to design that class so they feel fulfilled. And, it's like you take it home, they're not going to finish it. It's just, it just doesn't happen.
Yep.
The only difference from, mine and what I do with my long-term students versus this 5 days is that we don't have time to make a drawer. And there's, the nuances of, getting that opening right with a piston fit drawer. If I had one more day, I probably could, but I print them all the articles to do it if they want to do it.
Yeah. I made a hanging. This is 15 years ago or so, but I made a hanging jewelry cabinet for my wife. It's a little cabinet, it's got 2 doors that open, and it's got some shelves in there and a little spinning thing, but it's got it's got 3 drawers. It's got one long one at the bottom and two one. And I got that perfect piston fit where, when you close one, the other one will pop up a little bit, so you got, just
quite
perfect.
Satisfying.
Yeah. Quite satisfying. Drives my wife crazy.
That's fine. You're like, this is what it's supposed to be.
Does the humidity really just seize that sucker shut? I mean, you're in one of the most humid parts of the country.
Yeah? No, it doesn't. Well, it's an air conditioned space all the time. So yeah. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So that doesn't. But every time I shut a drawer, I got to shut another one. I got to put my hand over all 3 of them. So
a little hole in the back. Let it air out.
Exactly. But with Zach, Zach, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up and how you got into woodworking.
Sure. I grew up in the suburbs of Detroit. Both my parents are from there, and pretty normal, suburban upbringing, no complaints.
Lions fan?
Everyone else, if you talk to anyone else at the shop, they would be. I am not a sports guy.
Oh, okay.
But, I've dedicated all my mental capacity to wood.
Okay.
So
it's probably best if you're in Lions country.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is nice that they're good now. It makes everyone happy in the city, so that's a good feeling.
All right.
Because I was through the whole era of them being like very, very bad.
Yes.
So I hear all about it all the time, but I don't contribute. It's sort of a language. I'm like, this is a different language. I don't quite understand this, but people seem excited. And went to Michigan State. Did a study.
Oh, that's why Sean couldn't join us tonight. He saw that Michigan State in there. Yeah, he's a big Michigan guy.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we love them all equally.
Yeah.
But I do regret I never went to a football game, and as a student, it's like free or like really cheap. I should have done one just to do it.
Yeah.
stand in like 10-degree weather for 4 hours.
Yeah.
But I love State. It's a beautiful campus. I studied park management, like natural resource management.
Okay.
I was a camp counselor for years in northern Ontario on Lake Superior.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, that guided me heavily in my sort of like just the way I want to live my life, and just you know, it makes you can make you a whole person in a community like that, I feel like. And so then and I went to school in Detroit for a little bit, but then I was actually studying acting, and I was like a big theater kid in high school.
Okay.
And the movie industry was in Michigan for like a few years, and I was working with a casting director, but then it all fell apart, and I was like, well, I like trees too, so I'll study natural resources.
Well, we need to get you together with Brian Crano, who's we had him on a few episodes ago. He's actually a Hollywood director and writer.
Oh, cool. Well, if he needs anyone to play a woodworking teacher, I can do that.
Okay. Well, he might take that role for himself, but anyway.
Maybe there's two. Then, after studying, I moved out west to Oregon, and I was in Eugene for about half a year. And I did trail maintenance out there, and then I moved myself up to Portland, and my sister's there. She's been there for like 20 years now. So I have family out there, and did the thing in the 20s where I was doing some trail maintenance, and then I veered more into, I was like, I wanted to meet more people, wanted to be in the city. So I found like a restaurant gig cooking at a Southern Cajun restaurant. And like, Portland has the sort of, everyone's like, you think everyone's like vegan, vegetarian, and this was like meat and butter on everything, and it was really good. Like still the best biscuits I've ever had. And that was fun and formative in its own way. Then I did this app. I worked on this app called TaskRabbit. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I think I have. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like Uber for odd jobs, kind of. And it was just a way to make extra cash. And I started you could do anything on there. People would hire you to like, I was doing yard work and, just sort of general maintenance around people's homes. I was hired to wait in a brunch line, like in the morning, so someone else could get their family in. That was $35 an hour, which is crazy to me, but Wait,
you stood in line for them?
I stood in line for brunch. They're obsessed with brunch out there.
Wow.
So that was, easy money, not always the most rewarding to stand in a line. So then a contractor reached out to me on the app, and he just needed help like holding a beam. He was like, opening a wall in some house he was remodeling, and I saw all his tools, and I always wanted to, work with tools and do that whole thing. And I didn't grow up in a home where, I never did any of that growing up, zero. And I found out later he had all this Festool. I'm like, oh, this looks like some pretty nice tools. And I had no idea what I was looking at. And so he was doing high-end remodels.
Yeah.
And then he, I held this beam for him. It was a really easy job. And he was like, I was like, if I can work for you, I'll take like way less cash, like just so I can learn from you. And he was really kind, and he's like, I'm happy to do that. And we started working together a lot on homes out there. Then I sort of got the bug to move back to Detroit. I have a lot of friends here, still a lot of family out here. And there was, there was sort of like there's a feeling in the city, and there was a lot of homes being bought up and getting remodeled. So I knew I would have steady work. And I came back, started working with my friend Luis, and he would like buy a house. We'd live in it like punk rock style, where there's like no water, mattress on the floor, fix it all up, and then do another one in like 3 months. Eventually, I was doing that for a while. Then I worked with my buddy Steve, and we started like a home inspection company, and that was also fine, but it wasn't like the most fulfilling thing I could do. It was just sort of like it was just something that was working and sort of easy enough. And then the home remodels was fine, but I was sort of tired of being in basements and on my knees, like installing red oak flooring. It's all red oak flooring.
Right.
So, and then, well, really what happened is COVID hit and I stopped working in homes for a minute. And I was like, well, I've always wanted to make furniture. It mixes like design and the functionality of the stuff I'm already doing in homes, and Googled woodworking school, and Sam Beauford popped up, and I'd never heard of it. It was in Adrian. I never heard of the city of Adrian before. And I was like, oh, this is kind of far from Detroit. It's an hour 20 from Detroit. But it was the middle of COVID and gas was like $1 a gallon.
Right.
And I had nothing else going on. So I was like, I'll sign up. And at that point, the program was like, you only signed up for one semester. So it was like a 3.5 month commitment. And the moment I got there and we started working with Luke, he was the lead instructor at the time. So he had started the school, and I think it was only a couple of years old. And I didn't know any of that. I didn't really get the whole story right away. But
so was he still in the garage area, or he moved to the big building?
No, this was the big building you see.
Okay,
photos
so he
of
must have
now.
just moved into that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and like,
Yeah.
but to me, I was like, well, this is the place. I didn't know it had just happened. Like,
Yeah.
I only knew later that I was the first graduating class. And so he has this confidence he exudes that like he just he's like, this is what it is. This is what we're doing. And later I'm like, oh, this was actually the first time. But it was great, and I got addicted immediately, and I was like, okay, I'm making furniture. That's what I'm doing. And I started buying a ton of books, and it's all I read about, and it just totally took over my life. And I'm like, I'm going to let this define myself. Like, I'm going to be a furniture maker. And from there, I took the program, and then I was like, oh, he's like, we have a second semester program. So I stuck around longer. So I did the whole year, and there was only 4 or 5 other people. So it was a very intimate crowd. And at that point it was like, you do a cutting board, and then we made a molding plane, which was pretty cool. And then we did the toolbox, sort of like every school has their own toolbox, and we did one. And then it went into the design, and that's what I was excited for. A lot that year there, some people printed out plans for, I think, what's his name? Chris Goucher? Do you know who he's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
And he has this like nice sideboard, it's like 2 doors and a couple drawers. So it's like a great project for someone, a little more advanced, and a handful of people made that. But then I had this night where it was like 0 degrees, middle of January, and I just drew this case I wanted to make to hold records. And I brought that to Luke, and I was like, can I do this instead of the other cabinet? And he was like, yeah, go for it. So that was like my first designed piece, was my final project. And I was like, okay, I like designing. Feel like I got a knack for that and understanding proportions. And then we did the Windsor chair. Actually my year we did a Hans Wegner wishbone chair.
Okay. Those are nice.
But we did it like, Luke's a Windsor chair maker, so we did it Windsor style. So we were riving a white oak and doing it, and that way I was like, once I learned more about, the mid-century modern and Hans Wegner, I was like, oh, this is not how they did it. But it turned out great. I mean, everyone's turned out beautiful. I still have to weave the seat, which I plan on doing in about a month. So soon. So it's only what, 5 or 6 years. It's taking me. Yeah.
Like you said, if they don't leave with something complete. Right?
Exactly. I was like, and like we all knew, I was like, we're not gonna have time to weave it. And he's like, I'll send you a YouTube video, and then I still have that YouTube video saved. So I think that's Caleb James' old video.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah.
They're growing and caning.
Yeah. And the video is like, it's like before you could put long videos on YouTube. So it's like 11 parts, like that are 4 minutes each. And the quality is like, I was like, maybe I should email him and see if he wants to redo this, because this is like so hard to follow. So, and then we graduated, and I was trying to find space in the city to keep making stuff. And the nice thing about Detroit is it's still relatively affordable, and there's a lot of creative folks there, and you can, find big buildings to work out of. But I also asked Luke if I could stay for 1 day a week. I was like, can I just stick around somehow? And he let me come in on Fridays with the new class, that new term of the next year. He's like, you can help him out. And, I got a little bit of money, and I could make whatever I wanted. And then that same year, his assistant instructor had to leave the job for some reason. And I was like, can I be your assistant now? And he was like, sure. Yeah, do it. So that was 2 days a week, because the program used to only be 2 days. And then, so I got to meet that class and help, teach more things and just do the whole program again. So that repetition was just, I was, just getting ingrained with the fundamentals. Stuck around to finish that year. And I started teaching some summer classes. Basically, it was like a lot of the weekend classes, Luke's like, I don't really want to teach this anymore. So here you go. And I was eager to definitely do that. Then that third, yeah.
Well, it sounds like you must really have some talent for Luke just to get you involved that soon.
Sure.
And I can imagine teaching classes, just helping people out and then being able to teach classes. I can imagine how quickly that improved your own skills more than.
Yeah. It's teaching so powerful, because you're woodworking is such an insular thing, and it's so to yourself, but you're like, how do I articulate this to other people? Mm-hmm. And it's not just one other person. It's like 7 different types of people who all have a different way of learning it. So you're like, well, how do I express this that I can actually do it and it makes sense? And so, you only get better at it when you teach.
Right. And it sounds like you have a passion not only for the woodworking, but for the teaching too.
Yeah. And I think, when that camp counseling gig I was telling you about, like that's school, right, but fun. And that was, and it's about building a community and respecting people and hearing their stories and why they're there. What I've noticed now is people at the school, generally they're in their 20s or 30s doing the program, but it's like they've often tried something else and it didn't work out. So they're in this like gray zone in their life or career, and they're moving to a place, they're usually coming from far away. So you have to, I need to remind myself of that, because now it's so familiar to me. But, these people can often be in a gentle space. And so how do you bring something to them to get them excited about it? Also knowing that like, they're like maybe a little lost about their next move.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting. So, so tell us a little bit about that transition now. When you had in mind when you were going through this, and you mentioned, hey, I'm living in Detroit, I'm traveling an hour and 20 to the class and back and stuff like that during COVID and stuff like that. So once you became that instructor at SBWI, so how did that change the direction you thought you were going in to what you're now doing?
Yeah, I guess I didn't. I was sort of, because I was in that moment of that transitory period of like, what am I really doing? What do I really want to do?
Am I going to be a custom furniture maker?
And I felt like I was still learning so much being there, that I'm like, well, I'm growing, but I get to articulate that to other people, that I was like, well, this just feels right. It didn't even like, I was like, as long as Luke is going to let me stay here, I'm going to be here. Right. Because everyone comes to that shop, and if you're there long enough, you get jaded by actually how well shops like that are set up. Yeah. You're like, oh, we got a little of everything. You know?
Oh, yeah. He showed us some pictures. I mean, the building itself is just fabulous
Beautiful
to look at. And then once inside, it's like, holy crap. Yeah.
Yeah. All those windows.
I mean, that's just from photos. I can't imagine what it's like in real life.
No, people always, now that the summer classes are rolling in, you have all these like big-eyed people, and they're like, wow, this is such a beautiful space. They're like, yeah. Okay, grab your wood. Let's go. You're like, we got to move. But, and in the summer, it's pretty warm in there. We just got all these fans set up, and it's actually cooled it down like 10 degrees in there. It's amazing. And in the winter, it's pretty cold. But like, I let people know that people who are moving from like down south to take the class, I'm like, if you have not bought long underwear yet, it is time to bring that into your life. And like, you just need to keep moving.
Yeah. And they make some with batteries now.
Yeah.
We had a student had that this year. Yeah. She had the Milwaukee vest.
Oh, that is interesting. Well, so primarily now, besides the classes you're teaching in the summer, but during the quote unquote school year, so to speak, you're teaching the wood design program. So tell us a little bit about that program.
Yeah, it's 40 weeks Right now it runs from the end of August through the end of May.
Mm-hmm.
And it's there's 2 cohorts. So you have a Monday, Wednesday crew and a Tuesday, Thursday crew. Each day is a 6-hour class. So 12 hours of class time total for the week. Plus, when you sign up, you sign a contract that says, I will also be there for 12 hours of lab time. Fridays in the shop are just totally open for the students. So both cohorts are intermingling. Before class, Monday through Thursday, and after class is totally open. The shop has to, I think the dust has to turn off at 10 p.m., but they can be there as long as someone else is there. They're allowed to be there. Like they lock it up and do all that. And it is for beginners. It's for people that mostly have been like, I've never really done anything like this before, but open to everyone. And it starts with the fundamentals where we do, sharpening and just cutting. Like dovetails is pretty much right away because it's just such a good example of like what fine furniture represents. And then it's into the machine room and you learning how to mill a board square, which takes, when you really break it down, it takes days to really articulate that and then have all these folks do it and make a cutting board. And people are always like, a cutting board's the first project, a machine project. But I tell them that, if you've made a cutting board, you've done more woodworking than 95% of the world will ever do. Like really, like some people are just never touching anything like this. And a huge part of it with sharpening or machine work is learning the vocabulary. And I drill in, like if they say dado instead of groove or any of those things,
right?
I stop and correct them because we have to be speaking the same language.
Yeah,
and if we're not there, we can't design. You can't move on. So it's a cutting board. Then it's what do we do after that? Then there's like a step stool, then the hanging wall cabinet. And that one, and I commissioned those 2, and that's on my website. I made a really nice walnut one that I kept because I liked it so much. And that really blows people's minds because that's like you got to have a square box, and the through joinery's got to be clean, and just like understanding how to put a carcass together. Then
now, when you're teaching this, are you also making something with them so you can?
I'm not making like that project usually. I'll do like little demos of stuff.
Okay.
I've tried that before, but it can be too much. And then there's like the 2 cohorts, so it's a little different from some other
that's
schools
right.
where like I have to say the same thing. Monday, Tuesday is the same spiel, and then Wednesday, Thursday. That took a minute to get used to because it felt insincere the second time.
Yeah.
But I realized that's what being a teacher is, and if I like to use, humor through a lot of this. I think that brings people in and calms them down. And like, I can't be like, well, I can't make that joke. I made it yesterday. Well, I'm like, well, none of them were here. So I can kind of say, I can like have this script ready. And like, if that joke implants the technique in your head, that's successful. Right. So I'm happy to have a script then. And so I'll be working on like totally other stuff, like a lot of ladder backs right now. But from the wall cabinet, I'm doing the toolbox, and again, so that's like the end of first semester, which is so common for all these schools. Right. So they've bought all this Lee Nielsen stuff, and they're carrying tool totes or like just grocery bags of tools, and so we're giving them something to put it in. And I've redesigned that now 3 years in a row because our shop keeps changing. We just got this past year, we got some bench crafted benches, and they're amazing and perfect and everything you hope it would be.
Right.
And but the toolbox I originally designed was too wide, and I wanted to be able to fit 2 toolboxes underneath one bench, so each person from each cohort can have their toolboxes next to each other, sort of at their bench for the day.
Yeah.
And now, so now I'm sort of like finding the final form of this toolbox for the school, as long as we keep those benches, which we will.
Yes. Yeah. They'll probably outlive all of us. So
exactly.
But and then into second semester, there's always design implementation, learning sketching and sketch up, and we're experimenting with how to always put design in there right now. Then there's the chair portion, which is either doing Windsor chairs or ladder backs. And, that isn't so much design. There's like, you can switch little things on a Windsor and make it your own, and even paint color and spindle thickness, all those things. But there's so much, as you guys know, there's so much to a chair that just, articulating a sight line and really putting it it's not time to design. It's just like follow the rules, get it done.
Right.
And people love that portion the most usually. Then it's finally design a box, and we come back and you make a case. My rule is it has to be a case on a stand where you need at least one door and two drawers, and then has to stand on something. And that's pretty much it. And so for a month, I walk around and sit with each student and see what they've sketched and add recommendations, give them books. We have a huge library of about 1,000 books right on the wall in the bench room. And it's all cataloged. They can search everything. And, sort of like, oh, maybe go down this road. Have you heard of this person? Or it might just be someone I follow on Instagram and be like, look, they kind of did something you've drawn. Or you're doing way too much joinery and you have like 7 wood species in there and you need to tone it down.
Yeah.
So
it's always like to say it's the one guy that gets all obsessed with green and green, and he makes that one piece that has every element of green and green in it.
And it's like all the fake square plugs, and I'm like, take out 50 of those, and like it'll still be beautiful. Like I promise you. Yeah, and so all in all, like I basically walked through all the projects, but it's it's technique building, skill building, and design through project. And, which is similar to a lot of those schools. But just by doing and bringing something home, I think people feel pretty fulfilled, and that's what they tell me. So.
Well, cool. So what are some of the success stories of some of your students?
There's a bit. Oh, okay. I forgot about this. Yeah, another big part of the program is sort of like business skills and business building. So we have separate classes that are taught by other folks from the community, where like a lawyer will come in or a business owner will come in and talk about like the legality of running your own business and what that looks like, how to start that your own business. And
that's wonderful. Yeah, because so many, I think a number of schools are starting to incorporate that, but I'm glad to see it too, because it's like once you get into a business, it's like you're going to spend at least 40, maybe 50% of your time running the business,
hustling,
working in the shop. Yeah.
And, I think that's an ode to people taking crafts more seriously again, where they're sort of like, well, this isn't just like a cute thing to learn for a summer or a year. People really want to make careers out of it, because you have so many folks that are sitting, like sort of doing the desk jobs and feeling pretty unfulfilled for years. So those business courses have been huge. We have a lot of people that, are starting or have started their own furniture company. And we have a lot of other furniture brands and makers and sort of small to medium-sized furniture companies come in and pitch to our students. And we let them know that they're skilled and they know how to not only know how to use a saw stop and dado stack, but they can fix it up and switch things out. And it becomes pretty competitive for certain companies. It's pretty interesting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are they coming to try and shop for employees?
Yeah. So we always take time with these companies. Will come in and they bring like swag, and sometimes they'll bring donuts, and they'll be like, we'll fly you out here to tour the facilities, and they're like, this is our normal base pay, but for people that graduate from a program like this would be your base pay. We have a good connection with Vogue Furniture out of Royal Oak, which is just outside Detroit, and they make beautiful, beautiful stuff, built-ins and furniture, and the whole spectrum, and places all over. I mean, like I can't even name it. It's only getting bigger. Yeah.
Luke was telling us about the furniture. I guess the historic furniture companies that used to be in Michigan, and now the revival and the continuation of that. Yeah. That is outstanding. So tell us a little bit about some of the other classes you teach at, during the summertime. I guess that's when you're teaching like this wall hanging cabinet, but What are some of the other types of classes?
Yeah, right now it's fluctuated, but this summer I'm doing the wall cabinet. I'm doing next week I'm doing bench joinery. So that's just all in the bench room, dovetails, half blind, traditional mortise and tenon, through mortise and tenon, and they make like a little tool tote that they get to bring home all their joints in, which is great because Luke and I were talking about, classes we can run that maybe we don't need to bring other teachers in just to keep it in-house. That's, sort of always a mix of that.
Right.
And something that's low material use, because we can run a farmhouse table class, but that takes up, people want a 7-foot long cherry tabletop. And it's just a big thing to make.
And then they got to somehow leave with that too.
Yeah. I used to teach that, and I had people with, Toyota Corollas who were like, I can strap that to the top of the car and drive back to Indiana. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, I bought these at Harbor Freight. I'm like, maybe go to Lowe's and get straps.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, doing bench joinery and that's fun because it's so much calmer. There's no machine room. There's no dust going. It's just walk around and check people's dovetails basically. And the week after that, I'm doing the 2-slat ladder back that Jeff Lefkowitz designed.
Okay. Yeah.
And I took my students this year to make sort of, that's a pretty jig heavy build.
Yeah.
So my students in the 40-week program, I said, you guys are the guinea pigs for the ladder backs at SBWI. So we get to make all these jigs too, and you get to go home with a chair. And they were stoked. They learned template routing, and to actually have those skills is helpful in so many ways. Because the school is set up for Windsor chairs. Luke's been doing it there for years now. So I had to sort of make my own section in the basement for ladder backs.
Right.
Yeah. So that 2-slat, which I love that design, Jeff.
Yeah, it is a gorgeous design. Now you spent some time with Jeff and learning how to build the Bria ladder back, correct?
Yeah. So that was.
It kind of got his blessing to go forth and teach,
which was awesome. Jeff's great. He's like everything you think he would be, which I love.
Oh yeah.
It's been nice every summer I've been able to sort of do something by, sort of growing as a teacher and a maker outside of SBWI. 2 years ago, I did a fellowship at Center for Furniture Craftsmanship.
Okay.
And I slept on the property in a big tent, and I just stayed there for a month, and it was a, great learning experience, and met Yuri there, who's like the best wood bender I've ever seen, and sculptural, and
oh yeah, I've seen some of that stuff. It's amazing.
And I like butchered my glue up, and she was like, what happened? You messed up. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And she's like, we'll fix it. And she spent like 3 hours with me fixing it, and so it was great. Met really cool people there. But that was 2 years ago, and then last year when I went to Handworks, I knew Jeff. Everyone who was in our world, everyone who was everyone was there, right?
Right.
And got to shake Mike Pekovich's hand. I was like, wow, I've only emailed him. And I was somewhere. I think I was at Honeybrook Tools, which makes some good stuff. And Jeff was standing there, and I was like, oh, I've seen you on YouTube. And he's like, oh, nice to meet you. I think I've heard of your school, because SBWI is still kind of getting its name out in a lot of ways.
Right.
And we got to schmoozing, and he was like, I'm happy to teach you some ladder back making. So I got Luke's blessing to go to Virginia, and I spent 2 weeks with Jeff last summer making the 3-slat chair and then the armchair, and started with his slabs and did the whole thing, and stayed at his house, and they fed me out of their garden, and very idyllic 2 weeks. I was biking every day, and but I learned a ton. I realized with ladder backs that, sort of compared to Windsors, which I had done with Luke, I like being guided through Windsors, but ladder backs, I saw the whole design. I'm like, oh, I like making this, but I see how I could make it my own. Right. And I never saw that with a Windsor. So, it's like, that's just how you find your chair, kind of,
Right. And they are comfy too,
that's what I sat down, and, I think the big rocker, that like huge 6-slat one, I was like, wow, this is so comfortable. I'm like, I sort of whispered to Jeff, I was like, this is kind of more comfortable than Windsor's. And he goes, well, there's absolutely no question they're more comfortable than Windsor's. I was like, yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Much lighter too. Yeah.
So yeah, it's like a pinky.
Yeah, they are fascinating, and I've yet to build one, but hope I'll rectify that in the near future. So
Totally.
anyway, so that is interesting. So how long were you at Jeff's?
That was 2 weeks in
2 weeks?
Virginia, and that was almost exactly a year ago. And it was great to learn his. He has a very specific way, but he has all those manuals that are for everyone, just to get the info out, and that's so nice to have. And like important, I think, because it's such a complex. It can be so overwhelming to do something like that, and it really is step by step. And just like I said earlier, with my students, once you learn that step by step, you can sort of zoom out and see the macro side of how you could all manipulate it.
Mm-hmm.
And being a student again was nice, because I had been teaching so much. I sort of jumped into that so quick that I was like, okay, this is what it's like to hear information again, and how am I taking that in? And it was all very productive and good, but it was self-reflective in a good way.
Yeah, that's cool. That is cool. Yeah, I need to make one of those. I need to hear that sound when you crank the clamps on the
like it's like
pop, pop, pop.
My students called it the pirate ship, because it's like you're about to like get hit by a big wave or something.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, cool. Well, so with that, tell us a little bit about some of the furniture styles that influence your work.
I would say, starting broadly, I would say it's more just, contemporary has been the most influential. And I think that's just due to the internet and seeing what people are doing now. And because, I came up in the internet, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about like one genre or subgenre. It's about like bringing it all together. You're like a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But shaker, the ones that are more like reduced, I've always felt like the ones that are a little more pulled back. I've always been less into period stuff. Like I've worked with mahogany, and it's very nice to work with, but like, hard to get sustainably, and
right.
And like I've never done like a lot of carving or veneer work. I definitely, when I started teaching, I was like, I'm not doing veneer. I was like, I'll do a lot with them, but that's just not my thing. And we bring someone else in for that. Someone I graduated with, actually. So, but besides that, I mean, it's more. I feel like it's almost more like makers than sort of categories of styles. Because I remember, when I was a student, I bought Nakashima's book, The Soul of a Tree.
Right.
Yeah.
And never heard of him. And, I already knew, like, I sort of had this thing in my head where you'd see like the epoxy resin slab tables. And even with my sort of, quote unquote untrained eye, I was like, man, those are ugly.
Yeah.
But then I saw what Nakashima did. I was like, oh, this is who started that.
Like,
this is the purest form of what that is, and it works.
Mm-hmm.
So you got like people like sort of the big names, the Maloof and Nakashima, and so it's not only about like what they're making, but understanding why they made it when. And that's always been attracted to me, and that's what I'm trying to push into other people. It's like don't just copy right away. Sometimes it's good to just read about it and then push yourself in that direction.
Interesting. Well, so in that same vein, so what are some of the favorite projects you've made for yourself or others?
So that first project I designed while I was a student was to hold some records, and it had this like sort of zigzagging drawer on the bottom and then a drawer on the top, and so the records sat like almost like a Z.
Okay,
and I made like a much longer version of that, and people were really attracted to that. And it was like before I even had an idea of proportions or design, but it just kind of worked. And I was like, so just sort of seeing why people liked a certain thing. And so I liked that one. I do a lot of step stools, like shaker style step stools. because they're pretty narrow, but they're kind of for like kids in the kitchen.
Right.
Yeah. And so, I have a lot of friends who are like, this is way too, sort of childless friends. And I'm like, they're like, this is way too small. I'm like, well, it's not really for you to like put a light bulb in the middle of the room. And I've been told by parents that they're really happy it's narrow because they don't stub their toe in the middle of the night. Like it actually can get tucked away.
Yes.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And it's like, and I didn't even really think about that when I was making it. I just sort of was like, let me just see what this looks like. But then, that was the response I got. But a lot of record cabinets, and then going into the ladder backs. I've been so deep in that now for the last year that's like pretty much the post and rung style is what I've been really just diving into. Yeah.
So you mentioned about having your own take on that. So is that something you're working on? Maybe your own design?
It is. Yeah, it is. And because I really like, I made the 3D slat with Jeff and then the armchair, and they're bigger chairs. And again, like, Brian Boggs designed that, and he's like a big picture guy. Like you see the rest of the way he ran his company, and like he has this like, he's just sort of like, it's a more pronounced of a person. And Jeff's version of that is this more reduced, sort of quieter, smaller, and it sort of reflects kind of his philosophy too. And proportionally, I don't know, like some people see the 2 slat as a little too small, but I really dig it. Just like the Jenny Alexander chair. I'm like, wow, this is really, that was like sort of her like perfect chair.
Yeah, that's a good point. Have you made one of those yet?
No, that's like very soon. So
really?
We have some artists in residence at the school now. My students from last year, my former student Peter, we were just talking about this, and he's like, I really want to make a ladder back, but I want to use green wood. And I'm like, you're in luck. There's a whole book about that, and we can do that. And we got logs in the backyard. And Jenny's chair is just pushing the limits of how small you can make something, and keeping that strength but that flexibility. And so that's hopefully this summer I start getting that going. But so I've been drawing an armchair version of the 2 slat that Jeff's designed, and a rocker version. I really think like a low, wider rocker with 2 slats would be pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
So
that would be cool.
But I've only done one like actual rocker. Did a Windsor style, the modern one that Luke makes. So I definitely need to get some reps in on making sure that's like making sense and all that. But yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah. I made one of those rockers too. That's a big chair.
Big. But I think that's the comfiest.
Oh, it is the comfiest Windsor I've ever made.
It's cozy.
Yeah.
Is that the most recent one, Kyle?
Yeah. That's Galbert's design. Yeah, it's not his newest design, but it's the one that he did a few years ago. So anyway, I think his newest design is interesting. In fact, I got to call him up because I need to make another rocker for a friend of mine that's retiring. And so hopefully it won't be 4 years.
4 years. What's that guy's timeline of retirement?
Yeah. What?
Is that his like newest rocker design or just newest chair design in general?
His newest rocker design, Pete.
Okay,
Pete
yeah,
Galbert's newest.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think he's been making it for a couple of years, but it's kind of evolved from where it was now. He's got a new way, and I could be totally speaking out of turn, but he's doing a new method of joining the rockers to the legs. I think he's actually notching the rockers out to fit into just a straight mortise in the legs instead of fitting that rocker in there and then seeing your gap distances and then having to so I think he's actually that's my understanding. Unfortunately I talked to Pete a couple of weeks ago and I forgot to even ask him about that. So I need to talk to him and go, isn't that how you're doing it? So anyway, I've heard that's how he's doing it. I need to confirm it with him, but yeah, so might be interesting to try that because I actually had that idea because I built the rockers strictly from the plans in Fine Woodworking magazine, which have a number of mistakes. Luckily I knew about them before, or I was warned about them before I got too deep in them. Yeah. But one of the things when I was going through and I was going, because I came out with kind of a different way to cut the slots in the legs using a dado stack. But and when I was working all that out, I was like going, wonder if there's a way I could do something with the rockers so I wouldn't have to mess with these, perfectly, straight and, nicely milled slots in the legs. So, so that might be an idea I'm having to do, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. I think Jeff Wyatt does the dado stack thing too.
Yeah.
Because he taught a rocker at our school, and I saw him setting that up, which it seemed like a sketchy cut, but worked out.
Yeah. It's interesting. Now I know. Now, did he have the legs in the chair when he did it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
That's the way David Duyard does it. I came out with a technique where the legs were actually outside of. I'm just running the actual leg through there.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and that worked out fine. It's complicated. I have a video on my YouTube channel. It shows how I did it. But anyway, but it actually involved lasers, but just on one little part.
Okay.
But the weird thing is because the way on this particular design, the front legs and the back legs, the rake was a little different. So you had to compensate for that, which means, I think it was off like 2 degrees, which means you had to compensate for a degree. So actually the dado stack had to be tilted like 1 degree.
Oh, geez.
And then you had to run the front leg through facing one way. And then you had to make sure when you ran the back leg, you twisted 180 degrees so you could get that. Oh. So then that way they would be perfectly aligned. Yeah.
It's high stakes geometry right there.
Okay. So I got some work to do. Yeah. Sure.
Anyway, well, I guess I'm the jig man when it comes to Windsors and whatnot. So anyway, if I can find a way to jig it up, I will. Well, so let me ask you about your shop. So do you have your own shop, or that you work out of, or do you also?
Yeah, I'm just setting one up now this summer.
Okay.
So I'm my former student Josh, who graduated 2 years ago. He became a friend and lives right outside Detroit. Rented a space near Detroit and is setting up a shop, and asked me to. He was like, "Would you want a bench space here?" And he has all the machinery and CNC and more than any. I don't use a CNC. More than anything I need or could imagine. But as long as I have my hand tools and a couple machines, I can do a lot of stuff.
Right.
And we're setting that up now. Month of July I'm dedicating a bunch of time to that with him, and August, to really get that going. But for the past 5 years, I've just used the school because, and from that, I actually use it all the time. So I'm not like distanced from how things are set up, and getting good input on like, oh, maybe, you hear people complain about something and you're like, oh, you're doing it wrong. But if I'm always using those things, I can see that, oh, we do need to move this machine here or there.
Right.
So I've always used that, and shave horse in my basement. That's my winter weekends was filled with that.
Yes.
Because but again, milling everything up at SBWI. But this next year, I'm my assistant instructor from this year, Armando. We're now going to lead the program together, and I'm going to front load my lesson planning on Monday, Tuesday. So I'm going to be part-time at the school and then working out of the shop in the city, and then he'll be taking over the rest of the course on the other 2 days. So
nice.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be cool, and we work really well together. He's a very good maker, and I'm excited to see how that all works out. But I'm eager to do commission work. I'm eager to design rocking chairs, and I just need more time. I just need some more time, and this opportunity popped up. So to help design this space with Josh is great.
So are you doing a lot of commissions, or have you in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been weaving that in to my teaching, and when I was assistant, I had a lot more, and I was like, man, this is great. I can work here and do this. And then the moment I turned to lead, I was like, wow, there's not a lot of time to do other stuff.
Right.
And I'm writing lesson plans down, but like at my, or like building SketchUp files of the toolbox over and over. But, you know, it never frustrated me because I knew I was building a certain skill so intensely. I still know I started this when I was 29, and I'm like, oh, I still started this so much younger than a lot of people. You know, I have people come into my classes, they're like, you know, I just retired and I've always wanted to do this. And so that time issue's never gotten to me. So I'm like, well, let me just go full in on teaching and write everything down and articulate it well. And, you know, and just like, there's no cheating in woodworking. And to prove that to yourself by doing the lesson plans, and, you know, it's all become second nature. So now I have a big sketchbook of designs, and I'm excited to do at least a few.
Okay, cool. That is interesting. Well, so before we let you go, we always like to end with, what do you like to do outside of woodworking?
Not watch the Lions.
Okay.
Good choice.
Imagine a lot of outdoors and camping are in your repertoire.
That's in my life, and a lot of biking. I'm a huge biker.
Okay.
So, you know, Michigan is quite flat in Southeast Michigan. So doing 30, 40 miles a day is, you know, pretty doable and something that just gives me a certain high and sort of, you know, turns everything else off, that you can just kind of meditate and coast.
How windy is it there?
It can be windy, but it's, you know, and I kind of like that when it's really intense. I'm like, okay, here I go. Like, gotta push it harder, and I gotta, you know, justified my fancy bike purchase because I'm like, well, this wind's no problem. And a lot of pickleball recently. Yeah. I just moved to a new spot in Detroit, and I live a 5-minute walk from like 10 pickleball courts. So I've been meeting with a bunch of friends on Saturday mornings, and it's actually so wonderful to start early in the morning playing pickleball, and then I'm sore all day. It's a funny feeling. Like, it really wrecks you. It's crazy. Besides, I play guitar, you know, I like to fiddle on that, like acoustic guitar.
So
yeah,
Lutherie in your future?
Yeah.
No, you know, no. I have a lot of students that will come through, and they've done like some guitar making program, and so I've heard the ins and outs of it. But I'm like, you know, I don't know. I'd rather make a box.
I could start with a mandolin, you know, go small.
Right, sure. Ukulele, right?
Yeah.
And besides that, I mean, I feel like I've just dedicated this last half decade to just learning more and reading just a ton. I mean, I've never bought more books in the past 5 years than I have since I started woodworking.
Exactly. I can imagine. I imagine a fair number of those are Lost Art Press books, I would imagine.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Yes, they are. Well, with that, let's move on to our fortnightly beer choices. So I am just drinking house beer, which is Guinness. Brian, what about yourself?
I dug through my fridge. I forgot to chill them, but this little John Deere tractor I have has gotten me more beer than anything. Like, my neighbor had some bunch of dirt he wanted to dump into his garden bed. So, you know, it's been raining in Pennsylvania quite a bit. That stuff was incredible. It was like concrete. It's incredibly heavy. So I scooped it up with the tractor, 4 or 5 runs. Then he comes over with the big 12 pack of beer, Alchemist out of like Vermont, New Hampshire area.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, but I forgot to put it in the fridge. So I dug around. I found a beer called the Student and the Master, which is kind of in theme with our teaching class here. It's a double IPA from Treehouse Brewing. It's pretty good. It's a lot less hoppy than the last one that I had in the last show. I like it. I like it a lot. Zach, how about you?
I'm actually drinking some Pinot Noir.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I had some cold beer, but then I saw the wine, and it was kind of a warm day, and it's a cold wine, and I was like, you know, I'm gonna chug some wine. And I definitely, it can be a wino at times, and
nothing wrong with that.
No. And I was like, I was also like, man, if I'm on this podcast, I don't want to keep burping. So I was like, man, I was like, wine's a safe choice.
There you go. There you go. We have a special edit filter that filters all that out. But with that, Zach, where can folks find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, my website, friendofurniture.com. That's friend with an O, or Friendo Furniture on Instagram. Or you can check out the Sam Beauford website. I got all my classes posted there, and my bio and all that.
All right, fantastic. Friendo, how did that come about?
Yeah. It was just a shower thought. I was like, oh, that sounds cool. I was
Okay.
and I was like, oh, friendo for, it's like sort of, an alliteration and all that. And I was like, yeah, that sounds nice. And then my friend Sophia, she's Puerto Rican, speaks Spanish, and she's like, you know what that means in Spanish, right? And I'm like, I know. I was like, not something bad, right? She's like, no, it means frying, like a frying pan. So I'm also frying furniture. So.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
On everything. Yep.
Well, Zach, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and we greatly appreciate it. And that just about wraps it up for this show. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show on the podcatcher of your choice. Just search for the Modern Woodworkers Association. And while you're there, please leave us a review. You can follow us on Instagram at MWA_podcast. And if you'd like to support the podcast, go over to patreon.com/MWA podcast. But the best thing you can do is tell a friend. Word of mouth goes a long way in sharing our discussion.